Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us with MITA USA. Have an exciting topic here today. I think something that all of us are talking about on a fairly regular basis. But, it's preparation for the potential of the FDA coming in, and what do our organizations need to do to be able to be prepared for this? And so, I know CSQ and BRC was referenced. Obviously, these are GMP-based programs. And so I'd love to just be able to get into it. We could talk maybe a little bit at the very beginning here about just 21 CFR, 110, 111, 211, and what the ultimate, challenges are going to be for the individuals that are making that conversion. So, Darwin, being that you're here with CSQ, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. How's it going, everyone? Darwin Millard. I'm the technical director for cannabis safety and quality, and we are the cannabis industry's only accredited GCMP certification program that is designed and built for the cannabis industry by the cannabis industry. And our program happens to be compliant with many 21 CFR regulations, including 111, 117, and 112.
Okay.
110 technically doesn't exist anymore. That one's been phased out. So anyone building a program around 21 CFR 110 should probably upgrade that to 21 CFR 117. So that's a little more conformant with FSMA and our modern food safety requirements.
Okay.
Can you elaborate what the CFR is, right? Like there's a whole level of compliance. I work in metrology and tech, so I run a Cal lab. So
sure.
I'm ISO accredited. There's a whole process for all that. So you're talking CFR. This is FDA regulation, right? So it's a rule that a drug compliance, right? We're talking bio. Is this what?
So technically, everything we've been talking about so far is food.
Okay.
So if you wanted to get into drug manufacturing, now we're talking about 21 CFR 210,
right,
which is specifically for the manufacture of active pharmaceutical ingredients.
Okay.
Then you want to put those ingredients in a drug, that's 21 CFR 211.
Neat.
But I think, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Oh, please.
Okay. So I think, obviously with the different regulations, yes, I think that each municipality has really been kind of operating a little bit different. And so therefore, there are a lot of individuals out there that either chose food, chose dietary supplements. I think the pharmaceutical component of this is obviously something that is going to be a real challenge for individuals to be able to meet. And I think that's primarily based on dosing. And so I'm curious what you think some of those challenges might be for these individuals in regard to being able to create a standardized dosing with really consistent products that are ultimately coming out.
I think they're going to be all over the nation, right? So you're talking about like MSOs or people that have, a lot of dispensaries, that the bigger brands that are going to have a lot of issues with homogenization and keeping the consistency and the quality of the product. And they're also going to have problems in that scalability to get there. They're going to face challenges with the communication and culture, and there's a lot of things that having process and having a very specific thing identified help you work through. You never even have to face that challenge because of process and because of having the standards so high.
Sure.
Well, what did you think the methodology is already there for dosing, but now it's more. I'm always still back to the plant, right? The lab testing and performance and how to do it, right? For quality of THC, which most people want, or CBD, CBGN. There's different processes, right? Spectrography, and gas, just different ways, different math. So there needs to be a fundamental, I think, overall, like federal layout that will help for the homogeneous that you're talking about, for the easy math, right? Because even the numbers are not 100% correct, right? Because there is that open of, like, say it says 6 grams of fat, but you're allowed that tolerance of being off a little bit.
The 10 to 15 or,
whatever it is for everything, right? Like we all think that, and then that's the problem. Like we have ignorant consumers with most of how the background of what an industry is, right? Because it's very boring. But that's the thing that supposed to assure people when they go to the store and buy something that it's going to be not toxic or bad.
You lose customers too, right? I don't want to get higher than I anticipated.
So I guess everybody can't hear us without the mic.
Sorry.
I forgot that.
I was saying you lose customers. I don't like to get higher than I anticipated.
Yeah.
That's not a fun experience for me.
So, I mean, good manufacturing practices, right, are a way, and standard operating procedures, right, are a way that you can help ensure that your products are properly dosed or properly formulated. And then on top of that, you can have things like process validation, which are other types of standard operating procedures that you can use to help make sure that once you've developed a process for doing XYZ thing, that at the end of the day, it creates a reproducible product in a measurable way, so you can actually calculate your cost of goods and understand really what the efficiencies are.
Yeah, it's important. And honestly, any problem that you're having within your facility, no matter what that challenge is, can be identified throughout a process, which is go back to the SOP and look at every single one of them. If you're having a profit margin issue, if you're having a dose issue, like get into every granular level, define a container. I've gone into facilities. We had this container. I smoked a little bit more. We had this conversation earlier.
Yep.
But like I walked into a facility and I'm like, okay, both the manufacturers who both, do their own times, right? One has a day shift, one has a night shift, whatever. Show me the container you use, because it only says half a container here, and they were different containers, and that identifies profit margin loss. That identifies why people don't like our product. They're not coming back.
How many other products out there that like RSO and concentrates? These are things that are going to have to be measured and defined. And that's the pure essence of stuff being put in the edibles and other stuff. So, we're still a long way to, I think, getting real standardization. That 10 milligram gas is the dumbest. And like, there's just redundant reasons for laws and rules right now.
Even giving us like a nutrition label type of thing to follow, where even the consumer,
You're good.
This is so challenging for me today. Just giving us a nutrition label, so even the consumer themselves, like as the producer, I know what to fill out, but as the consumer, I know where to find that. So if I'm looking for certain levels in CBG or whatever particular thing that I'm trying to identify in that product, I can find it very easily. That would be great.
Yeah.
Well, so along those lines, right, with a CSQ certification, in that you have to define what your product specifications are. And once you've defined that, right, you have visibility now on what your product should be, which helps you define your processes, which will then again through process validation allows you to make sure that you can meet those product specifications that you've defined. But the first thing you have to do is define those product specifications, because if you're just making a product and you don't really know what it is, then you can't keep track of your cost of goods in regard to manufacturing it, but you also can't keep track of deviations and nonconformances that might occur through that process, which is why having good manufacturing practices in place gives you that visibility over your process.
Yeah, I think it's a true understanding of a quality management system implemented correctly into an operation like this. And I think, we hear a lot about GMP, right? And that GMP is the route that we're headed, and that everyone needs to ultimately, go through a certification process to do this. I want to maybe for a second talk about like the business aspect of this, because I think there's a really incredible advantage of having a certification due to consistency in your operation. But, I'd really like to address kind of the idea of turning this into a value, right? That by creating those, advantages like first time right. You're talking about deviations. And so if we are, connecting on a first time right, we're not making mistakes. We obviously have more inventory to sell. We have more product available. There's a capital conversation here that's not just a cost center, but ultimately something that can provide value. So
what's the first time right? I'm more just the running a lab and test and measure. Like that's my skill set. Like I can find bullshit in most, there's a lot of, that's part of the thing with certifications and accreditations is like lowest bidder. Unfortunately we have that mentality where, hey, I got 3 options and this mechanic's charging me $20, that one was charging me $2,000. Well, shit, I got $20. But by the time they get to you guys, because they're already figured out those foundations of how to create the concentrate, how to have their processes, right? Nobody's just waking up and going, I want to make brownies tomorrow. It's like I have a recipe. Wow, they're fucking dumb, but like the whole thing is like a business aspect, right? You're gonna have a plan. You don't want to. it's gambling, but it's not gambling, right? Because you're gonna be like, shit, this is the dream, but also I need to eat, and especially with cannabis, we're such it's a gray area still, with the test and measure.
I like to really have a conversation with the operators I get a chance to work with before they've made their investment, right? They're just starting. And I like to let them know this is going to take you 4 times longer. It's going to cost you 4 times as much money as you've calculated. Put your pound down to $600 a pound on all of your projections and calculations. And if it goes over that, good for you. And I'm not saying that's where the market's at everywhere, but you'll be better in your projections if you set it somewhere like that, right? Like, be really just, do you really want to do this with your life savings?
Well, Ryan, and I appreciate you wanting to touch on kind of the business case, right? And so when people talking about GMPs, federal regulations and oversight, and you start throwing around the CFRs, people get really confused and scared all the time. And they also get confused about, like, so how much is a GMP certification, right? Well, a GMP certification, at least for CSQ, we're talking about a 4-figure investment to avoid a 6-figure loss. And to make that into like real numbers, we're talking like $23 a day to help keep the regulators away. Something as simple as that.
That's nice.
To put those in hard terms. But you had mentioned, testing the end product and how that's the way that we are protecting the end consumer by assuring that the product met regulatory requirements.
Yeah.
But that's the benefit of the quality management system being in place in the first place, is that you have the assurances built into the manufacturing process that kind of what Ryan was saying with, first time right, but through process validation, having established those parameters in place, you can know, you can have a high degree of confidence that you're going to result in a repeatable product that's going to be within your specifications, because nothing's going to be 0%.
Right.
It's going to be plus or minus some margin of error.
Better be 0.
I hate being doom and gloom when it comes to test and measure, because I have someone who's worked in tech and I worked in the third-party calibration industry, right? Like, the lowest bidder stuff is like bad. Like, it's the same thing with like flexing the THC numbers, right? Like, there's somebody willing to flex it and do it for you simply because the consumer doesn't know shit. Like they, I make my bag, and we're not going to talk about like how I got my technicians going out and perhaps looking the other way when they, puts a finger on the scale or whatever they do. However, fudge the numbers. There's different ways to do things, but like the fundamental, there's got to be, and this is going to be nothing until federal happens, right? Like there's different organizations talking about how to do things, and back to GMP, because what does GMP in cannabis look like, right? We know what it looks like in food, what it looks like in corn, but what does it look like in cannabis? And who's going to fudge? But it's cheap. It's not cheap, right? For real good quality SOPs and
It's not.
No, it's not cheap, but
It's
I
really
think
not.
that there is an ability to have a revenue stream that you are benefiting from it. And that's why when I talk about first time right, it's because if you make mistakes in that manufacturing process, you're going to throw that product away. If you're over on your potencies here, this product is
There's 10
going in the
years of
garbage. There's a lot
mistake.
of cost involved
Cost,
in that.
yeah.
And so first time right programs are really just to make sure that our consistency in our production process is working. I mean, when you talk about a GMP program in regard to maybe a master manufacturing record, or that you have a true consistency in exactly how that product is constructed from the beginning to the end. That level of consistency is what our consumers are really wanting. And
that's why
really why we're
version
pushing on it.
control is so important too, right?
Sure.
Like keeping track of all of those changes and things like that. But yeah, the consumer deserves that consistency too. I don't like having a negative experience. I mentioned that before.
Sure.
And I'm paying for whatever I'm sold, right?
Well, and even more importantly than that, the consumer assumes that the same food safety systems that are in place for the traditional consumer product marketplace exist in cannabis, and they do not. Like, you go to a convenience store, you're going to do a spontaneous buy for your Reese's, your M&Ms, whatever it might be, because you don't even think twice about the consumer safety requirements that those manufacturers have to deal with. In the cannabis industry, for some special reason, we decided that we were a consume at your own risk type product, and built into our regulations.
I think it started like that. I think the industry's matured a lot. I think there's a lot of really responsible manufacturers out there. I think we have a long way to go, but I do think that we're definitely getting there. I mean, we care about our consumers, right? For the majority of us.
We could just toss this off the window and just talk about hemp. You know what I mean? Like this is, but that's part of the issue too, right? Where in regulated states, cannabis is the real deal weed that you're getting. Like, no shit, someone tried. It's a crop, but the hemp thing is being manipulated and spray. It's just all gross.
It's gross. But that's what's going to happen. See, here's my fear.
Buying it though.
But that's my fear of the FDA. That's my fear of the FDA taking this over, because look at what they've done to our tobacco, which is a beautiful plant used in ceremonies, right? And look at what they've done to our food. Like, I'm concerned.
Well, that's part of the checks and balances, right? Like that's why doors fall off in Boeing planes when they're self-checking themselves. Like, that's part of the problem.
It's accountability.
But there's ignorance in that test and measure. You know, like the reason why you guys have standing, like to get an A2LA accreditation in tech, the auditor comes out and gets paid $1,000 a day. Mm-hmm. That's pretty sweet. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's his best interest to kind of make it last a little longer if it has to. Or so there's a lot of like even shady stuff going on there when it comes to like your auditors and what seems like a nonprofit. Like, we don't live in this perfect world, and so like with cannabis, I think we still have a chance of everything still being aligned good, but it's still going to be goofy for a while.
I have to push just slightly back on that a little bit, in the respect that there is a strong system of integrity and accountability built into the accreditation system, defined by the IAF and the ILAC system in respect to international accreditation and how that system is managed. If there are operators out there that are violating those principles, that means either their accreditation body or their certification body is failing to do their job and should lose their accreditation and or certification that's given to them by their accreditation body. Those are major issues in industry which would actually challenge and call into question the credibility and credibility of all industries.
I think I have so many issues.
Which are, which everything should be questioned, really. But I think too, as a industry as a whole, we need to take more responsibility for workforce training.
Sure.
We need to take more responsibility to keep our employees safe.
Yes.
To keep, make sure that we're taking measures for employee safety, for public safety, and for environmental safety. There's a rolling grant right now in California, $20 million a year, that they're having. The Fish and Game is reinvesting back into the environment, helping cultivators become more compliant because of the negative effects that they've seen. A lot of these things, could have been prevented if we could have educated the workforce.
Sure.
And I'm not saying all the workers and employees are going to do the right thing all the time just because we educated them, but at least we did.
Good quality does come down to just your brand, right? Like the investment. Like we visited, my partner and I visited Green somebody, because everybody's green, in Washington State. And they have a lab in their facility. They test their own product, right? First they test the hemp, CBD, whatever they're freaking putting in their infusion. They're testing that their own. And then, they send it to the third party. So like covering your ass is all it's about, right? It's a CYA thing, doing good quality, and so
sure, but I think, part of the reason that we're all here this week is by talking about implementation of operational excellence at our facilities, about improving the industry, about getting better so that the consumers are more excited about the products that we are creating. So I think it's a collective conversation here that all of us need to understand that we're putting the right foot forward, right? And that we need to, as an industry, to be able to, have that level of buy-in.
When you signed up to be an operator, you signed up to follow all of this. You signed up to do better, to scale up, to follow these practices, and to protect the consumer.
And maybe to put it another way, right? Well, good manufacturing practices are like the minimum bar in all other industries. And no one advertises that they meet the minimum bar. And nor should it be the consumer's responsibility to push the manufacturer to meet the minimums in all other industries. People should be screaming at the top of their lungs that they're GMP certified and doing the bare minimum to protect consumer safety.
So one thing I love about cannabis, I'll hand this over.
Oh, you go.
Is that it's given people like myself an opportunity to start something and to do something. And a lot of that I have learned through my experience. And so I also am huge, like, and Build My SOP helps a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. It's given me a chance to do something with my life. And so not everyone can afford everything, and people have to scale and people have to take steps, so I'm proud of anybody who's getting any certification really in this space.
And take everything we said and the knowledge, and not if you're hemp. I mean, and that's part of legalization, right? The misinformation, the dumb stuff that's going on right now. Like, people saying it's legal, but it's not. Like, you're getting McDonald's and legal states are getting Wagyu. So, yeah.
Well, that's clearly one of these challenges, and I think us, talking about both marijuana and hemp and how these, pulled together are a reality. But either way, I'm glad that you guys all joined us here today, and we can talk about this. That it's a really important topic for the industry, and I think that quality management systems and operational excellence is the direction here for all of us. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming today to the podcast here with Meta USA, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks
Thanks
everybody.
for having us. Thanks, Mita.
Cheers.